Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is a pro-revenge story. I'm a die-hard Ravens fan, the type who spends all day tailgating in the parking lot. Back in 2022, we made it to the Super Bowl. At the time, I was working at a marketing agency with several accounts I managed directly. One client in particular, Tom, knew how passionate I was about the Ravens. I was the day-to-day lead on his account. We got along well and often grabbed drinks or dinner after our meetings. He had access to a pair of extra company seats for the game and wanted to give them to me as a thank you gift. He passed the tickets to the partner on that account, who I'll call Jerkface, to be given to me as a surprise. The game came and went. We lost, and it was devastating. The next time Tom and I met, we went for drinks afterward, and he brought up the game. "Hey, by the way, why didn't you go to the Super Bowl? I heard someone else was in your seats," Tom said, looking confused. "What do you mean?" I asked, equally puzzled. "The Super Bowl. I gave Jerkface a pair of our company tickets for you as a gift," Tom explained. I was stunned. "I had no idea about any tickets to the Super Bowl." Tom looked shocked. "That's impossible. I specifically told Jerkface they were for you. Look, don't say anything yet, but quietly ask around about it and get back to me." When I returned to the office the following week, I discreetly inquired about the tickets. Our receptionist, Sarah, told me that Jerkface had given a pair of Super Bowl tickets to another client as a gift from our company. I might have let this slide under different circumstances, but these were seats on the 30-yard line to see the Ravens play in the Super Bowl. I was furious. I considered confronting Jerkface myself, but realized it was Tom who had noticed my absence in the first place. If I let him handle it, there would be no blowback on me. So I texted Tom, "Hey, I wanted to thank you for thinking of me with those seats. It seems they were given to another one of our firm's clients." Tom's response was immediate and in all caps. "Are you kidding me?" Followed by, "Pretend I never told you. Let me handle this." A few days later, Tom asked us to come down for a meeting at their office. He requested the partner be present, which wasn't unusual, so Jerkface and I flew down the next week. Little did Jerkface know, Tom had orchestrated an awkward little show to catch him red-handed. When we entered the conference room, we saw the usual faces, along with a woman in her 30s we didn't recognize. Tom immediately made introductions. "Jerkface, this is Amanda Johnson, VP from our marketing department. She wanted to sit in on this meeting. Hey, you must already know her from the Super Bowl, right?" Amanda extended her hand to me, looking slightly confused. "Oh, I don't think so. Did we meet there? I'm sorry if I forgot." Tom feigned surprise. "Come on, Amanda, how much did you drink? They were sitting right next to you." I jumped in, playing along. "Sorry, Tom, I wasn't there." "Are you thinking of someone else?" Jerkface started to squirm, visibly uncomfortable. He began, but Amanda cut him off. "No, it was John and Sarah from XYZ Corp in the other seats. By the way, I was wondering why we gave company seats to those guys. Is there a project we're working on with them that I don't know about?" Jerkface stammered. Tom immediately pounced. "Jerkface, I gave you those tickets for our friend here, didn't I?" Jerkface's face turned bright red. "Oh, well, he wasn't able to make it, so he must have given the seats to someone else." He looked at me, clearly hoping I'd cover for him. I played dumb. "What are you talking about? Tom, you gave me tickets to the Super Bowl?" Tom raised his voice. "Jerkface, those tickets were a personal thank you gift from me. Did you give them to someone else? Another client?" Jerkface tried to backpedal. "Oh, maybe something got mixed up in the office." Tom went quiet for what must have felt like an eternity to Jerkface. He then packed up his things and said, "I think this meeting is over. I need to evaluate our relationship. Jerkface, please go back home and expect to hear from us next week." As Jerkface left, we all burst into laughter. Amanda wasn't really a VP, just an employee Tom had recruited for his little skit. She joined us for lunch, and we had a great time. On our way to the restaurant, I got a desperate text from Jerkface asking me to cover for the firm, and that we'd discuss things when I got back. I replied, "Yes, we need to talk, but I'll see what I can do." Tom instructed me to wait a couple of hours before responding with his demands: repayment for the ticket's resale value, over $12,000, our expensive lunch bill, a direct apology to me, a written apology to his company, and a request to only work with me or another partner, never Jerkface. This incident caused quite a stir at our firm, but I came out looking great for trying to save the client despite being the victim. Jerkface lost his profit share on the account, and the other partners made him pay the invoices out of his salary. I still can't fathom what Jerkface was thinking. Did he really believe Tom wouldn't notice me not thanking him for Super Bowl tickets? The situation left a bad taste in my mouth, and I ended up leaving the firm a few months later for a better position. Tom terminated their relationship with that firm a year later and now works with a good friend of mine at a competing agency. I'm still disappointed I missed out on the Super Bowl, even though we lost. Here's hoping the Ravens make it back this year so I can finally attend one in person. Go Ravens! The next one is an entitled people's story. Living by the lake had always been my dream. When I finally saved up enough to buy a small plot of land with lake access, I was over the moon. It wasn't much, just an acre with about 50 feet of lakefront, but it was mine. I had plans to build a modest cabin and spend my weekends fishing and kayaking. Little did I know that my slice of paradise would soon become a battleground. It all started when Karen moved in next door. She bought the property to my left, which had a similar setup to mine, about an acre of land with lake access. At first, she seemed nice enough. She introduced herself shortly after moving in, gushing about how excited she was to be living by the lake. "It's just so peaceful here," she said, smiling widely. "I can't wait to really settle in and enjoy it." I nodded in agreement. That's exactly why I bought my place. Nothing beats watching the sunset over the water. For a few weeks, things were fine. I'd wave to Karen when I saw her out in her yard, and she'd wave back. But then I started noticing some odd behavior. One Saturday morning, I was out marking the boundaries of where I planned to build my cabin when I spotted Karen standing near the property line, watching me intently. When she saw me notice her, she quickly turned and went back inside her house. A few days later, I came home from work to find survey stakes along what I thought was my property line. They weren't mine, and they seemed to be placed about 10 feet onto my land. I frowned, confused, and decided to talk to Karen about it. I knocked on her door, and she answered with that same wide smile. "Oh, hi, neighbor. What can I do for you?" "Hey, Karen," I said, trying to keep my tone friendly. "I noticed some survey stakes along our property line. Did you have someone out to do a survey?" Her smile faltered for just a moment before returning full force. "Oh, yes, I did. I just wanted to make sure of the exact boundaries before I start any landscaping projects. Is there a problem?" I hesitated, not wanting to accuse her of anything outright. "Well, it's just that the stakes seem to be a bit onto my property. I'm pretty sure of where the line is." Karen's eyes narrowed slightly. "Oh, I'm sure the surveyor knows what they're doing. They're professionals, after all." "Right," I said slowly. "Well, I have a copy of my property survey from when I bought the place. Maybe we could compare." "That won't be necessary," Karen said quickly. "I trust my surveyor, but thanks for stopping by." And with that, she closed the door in my face. I stood there for a moment, stunned. Something definitely felt off about this whole situation. I decided to do some digging. The next day, I called the county assessor's office to double-check my property boundaries. They confirmed what I already knew. The line was exactly where I thought it was, not where Karen's stakes were placed. Armed with this information, I decided to confront Karen again. This time, when I knocked on her door, she didn't answer. I could see her peeking out from behind a curtain, but she refused to come to the door. Over the next few weeks, things escalated. I'd come home to find more survey stakes, each time creeping further onto my property. Then, one day, I arrived to find a crew of workers on my land starting to clear trees near the lake. I immediately confronted them. "Hey, what are you doing? This is private property." The foreman looked confused. "We were hired by the owner to clear this area for a dock." My heart sank. "I'm the owner, and I didn't hire anyone." The foreman pulled out some paperwork. "Our client is Karen Johnson. She provided proof of ownership for this parcel." I was floored. How could Karen possibly have documentation claiming she owned my land? I asked the foreman to stop work while I sorted this out, and thankfully he agreed. I immediately called a lawyer. After explaining the situation, he advised me to file a police report for attempted theft and fraud. He also suggested I get a new survey done immediately to officially mark my boundaries. The next few days were a whirlwind. I filed the police report, had a new survey done, which of course confirmed my original boundaries, and worked with my lawyer to send cease and desist letters to Karen and the construction company. Karen's response was to double down. She filed a countersuit claiming that she had documentation proving she owned not just the disputed area, but my entire property. She even produced a deed that looked official at first glance. But my lawyer was good. He dug deeper and discovered that Karen had hired someone to create fake property documents. Not only that, but she had bribed a county clerk to enter these fake documents into the official records. The house of cards came tumbling down quickly after that. The police arrested Karen for fraud and conspiracy. The county clerk was also arrested and is facing charges. The construction company, once they realized they had been duped, apologized profusely and offered to restore any damage they had done to my property free of charge. As for Karen, she's facing serious jail time. Turns out, this wasn't her first attempt at stealing property. The prosecutor uncovered 2 other cases where she had pulled similar stunts in other states. In the end, my property boundaries were firmly established, and I even won a civil suit against Karen for the stress and trouble she put me through. The judge ordered her to pay for a security system for my property and cover all my legal fees. I used some of the money from the lawsuit to finally build my cabin. It's small but cozy, with a perfect view of the lake. Every time I sit on my porch and watch the sunset, I think about how close I came to losing it all to a greedy, entitled neighbor. Karen's house still sits empty next door. I hear the bank is planning to auction it off soon. I can only hope that whoever buys it will be a better neighbor than Karen ever was. As for me, I've learned a valuable lesson about the importance of knowing your property rights and being vigilant, but I've also learned that there are good people out there. From the construction foreman who stopped work when I explained the situation, to my lawyer who worked tirelessly to uncover the truth, to the police officers who took my case seriously. These days, I make a point to introduce myself to everyone who moves into the neighborhood. I share my story as a cautionary tale, but also as a reminder that when we stand up for what's right, justice can prevail. And every time I push my kayak into the lake from my very own shoreline, I say a little thank you. Not just for the beauty of this place, but for the fact that it's mine, fair and square. The next one is a malicious compliance story. Well, this happened a few years ago when I was working as a techno manager in an Indian startup IT firm. It was a small firm with less than 50 employees, and there were 2 founders. Let's call them Vicky and Joel. Vicky had worked a short time in an MNC, but was not able to stand authority and had to resign, whereas Joel had no real workplace experience. Vicky managed the place like a king, show tantrums, anger, etc. Joel was simply a yes man to Vicky. Now we had an HR lady who was okay-ish with the older employees and strict with the newer ones. As for me, I was not that good technically compared to my colleagues, but was good at people management. Also, I was one of the longest serving employee too. I was friendly with most of the employees, especially the new ones. This was due to the fact that I knew it was not easy to work with the founders, and I wanted the show to continue as it was my first company too, so a new joinee named Bob joins, and after 6 months he is assigned into a project. Because of the time zone difference, he worked up to 4 or 5 a.m., and the client too was happy with him. Since he was sleeping late, this guy always reported at nearly 11:30 a.m. in office. Out of the blue, founder calls me in HR and asks that why Bob is late to office and said he has to be in office by 10 a.m. as other guys. BTW forgot to mention Vicky and Joel came into office only once in a while, and it was pre-corona times, but since they are founders, let's ignore that. HR lady took the responsibility of asking Bob about that. At this point, since HR lady is not aware of Bob's working hours, I interrupted and told that he's leaving the office by only 2:04 a.m. and it's kind of unfair to ask him to cone early. Vicky cut me and says, "No, he has to follow rules and this is the basic etiquette when working in this office." I said, "Okay." HR lady calls Bob in her office and questions him about the timings, to which Bob says, "Okay, ma'am, we'll comply." Now Bob and me have a good rapport and he comes directly to me and tell me what happened with the HR. Then I ask him, "What are you gonna do?" To which he says, "I will ask for a clarification via mail, and then we'll comply." I understood where it's going and give him a best of luck, trying hard to contain my laughter. After 10 minds, HR comes to me with her laptop in panic and show me the mail which Bob has sent. He has CC'd the founders, the client head he's reporting to, and have written something in lines of this: "Hi, client head name. This is to inform you that as a request from my office to comply to the office timings, from tomorrow onwards, my work timings would be 10 a.m. IST to 7 p.m. IST, i.e. 10:30 p.m. to 7:30 a.m. Chicago time. I request you to change your meeting times to the times when I am available, and if any inconveniences, please contact HR, Vicky, or Joel. Thanks, Bob." I asked the HR if this was somewhere mentioned in the offer letter, and she nods yes. I tell her to take the matter to Vicky. At Vicky's room, since the narcissist guy he is, scolds HR for nothing this in the offer letter. Then asks her to correct this. She goes to Bob and asks for correction, to which Bob firmly says no to. HR lady, being stupid, tells that she told this because Vicky asks her to, and Bob still stands firm and asks HR if Vicky have said it, then asks Vicky to formally reply in the mail thread asking to revert to his old timings. Bob also says that he is not going to get back to old timings unless Vicky mails, and they have approximately 4 hours to do so before the client reacts. HR comes to me for help, and we go together to Vicky's room and brief. Vicky lash out at HR, and at this point I interrupt and says, "It's better to address the issue as in 4 hours client will get involved, and we have to take a decision before that." Vicky hesitantly sent out the mail saying it was a mistake as Bob's special case was not considered during the decision-making and Bob can continue his earlier timings. As I walked back to office, I saw Bob looking at me and laughing really hard, and I had to hold a straight face as HR lady was also behind me. Needless to say, Bob has his timings intact. The next one is an entitled people's story. Even from before my child was born, although her relationship with me, also with husband, was not a close one, she started pushing her presents, her gifts, her plans on us. She doesn't have a grandchild of her own. I managed to put her into her place politely, and things are not happening the way she wished. I thought she would leave us alone, and husband would grow a backbone and protect our privacy. He claims he is in between, and all he wants is a united family, but I don't think that means protecting rude people and making myself a doormat. So if I am reacting, I have a reason. Fortunately, we rarely talk to her now, but it seems she still hopes for something. I don't get what, but my intuition goes crazy. I mean, we have normal relationships with many people, and our toddler has enough social life, and I'm not worried, but everything with this woman seems to trigger me. We had a short video conversation a few days ago, the second one we had during this year up to now. Instead of using that time to check up on our kid and have a light talk or giving information from her side, which rarely happens, she scolded us for not taking the child to her place for vacation, like our business is hers. And she almost scolded me for being around my kid during the video call, that the kid has distracted my mom and doesn't want to look as her. When in fact, at his age, you can't really demand such things. It's creche age. Is she really that creepy, or I am just paranoid? Her Facebook feed has many quotes. Analyzing them over the past few years since we had our son, all seems to be directed to me. She plays the victim. She thinks she is being used and treated badly and things are taken from her. I'm not stupid. She has plenty of issues but seems to be fixated on our personal life and decisions. Again, thank God there is a good physical distance between us. I imagine that if I don't have a position, the next thing that will happen is speaking to my kid behind my back and convincing him different things. When he was 1, we had a video call. Again, she used the time to tell us that she can't wait for us to bring our son to her place to visit so she can convince him not to want to mommy and daddy's place again. I would never, ever do that to anyone. How can you be that idiot to need that kind of validation from a small child, from someone else's child? Husband thinks she's just plain stupid or making bad jokes with a good intention, and I don't want to talk to him anymore because he won't understand. But I tend to believe that it's not just lack of common sense, it seems to be evil and intentional. This was a long rant, but if anyone has some advice, I'll be happy to read it. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.